What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Johnny Mack here. Just wanted to give you a heads up that if you are looking for a community that is open to discussion as far as mentorship, conservation, the wild, becoming a better person, and all of that, there is a group for you on Facebook, and it is called Soul Seekers. Soul Seekers, we are all about making ourselves a better person. We're all about making sure hunting lasts for generations to come and encouraging people to get plugged in. Whether you are someone who has something to give or someone who needs to soak it up like a sponge, this is a community for you, and I strongly encourage you that if you're on Facebook to join Soul Seekers, and if you're not on Facebook, hop on there just for that group. It is only going to be as powerful as we all make it. And so just remember that life happens for you, it doesn't happen to you, and that you can't outgive good. You can't outgive good, people. I want you to understand that, and I want you to believe it, because when we believe that and we lead with courage and we lead with intention, lives are changed, lives are transformed, just like on this podcast, transformation through primal adventure. Be blessed. Enjoy this episode. Talk soon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack. Through this podcast, I'm on a mission to transform lives through primal adventure and to spread my mission of mentorship as conservation. This podcast is powered by Washington Backcountry, a resource for all hunters, both new and old. To find out more about Washington Backcountry, go to wabackcountry.com or search for Washington Backcountry on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The Soulful Hunter Podcast is also proudly presented by T&K Hunting Gear. If you haven't heard about T&K, then it's about time you do. I've been using T&K gear out in the field and on hunts and have fallen in love with their stuff. T&K is veteran-owned and 100% made in America using only American-made products. All their gear is covered under a lifetime warranty with no questions asked. If it breaks or fails, they will fix it or replace it for free. T&K is your resource for bino harnesses, bow slings, and a lot more amazing gear. For more information about T&K hunting gear, go to tnkhunting.com or search for them on Facebook and Instagram. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Freedom on and stay soulful. The Soulful Hunter Podcast is also proudly presented by the Crazy Elk Company. Based out of the state of Washington with products made in America, they are providing solutions with gear to problems you didn't even know you had. Their tag wallet is one of those solutions, and I had the pleasure of using it on all of my hunts this last year, and it is now a mainstay in my kill kit. The tag wallet is a water-resistant zippered pouch that comes with its own reusable zip ties to safely and securely store your notch tag for quick and easy access. For more information, go to crazyelkcompany.com and use the code SOULFUL with a capital S to save 20% at checkout. Be blessed, everyone, and as always, stay soulful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and tonight I am joined by a wonderful human being and the author of Big Game Hunting 101, No Room Service, and Other Terrifying Realities, Fred Kloecker, and also known as Frederick Aloysius Wellington IV, but that's only when he gets in trouble. And we're going to be talking a little bit about his book because I had the pleasure and privilege of reading it to kick off 2021. And I got to tell you that as far as a hunting book is concerned, extremely entertaining. And Fred brings an extremely different perspective to hunting. He is someone who has gotten into it and in his adult life, and we're going to talk all about that. So, Fred, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Johnny. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, man. It is my pleasure and privilege. I love podcasting because I get to have these conversations with people and to build connection and community. And, you know, so often we get stuck inside our own little bubble. And I think that is also a part of what your book talks about is, you know, you only know what you know until you experience other things. And then it opens your eyes to a whole nother realm, a whole nother world and a perspective. And so, Fred, give the listeners a little history on yourself, and then kind of what spurred on you writing your book, and well, let's dive into it.
All right. Well, I grew up with a fair amount of privilege in St. Louis, Missouri, and I was thanks to my parents, a member of the country club set, and golf courses and first class travel, and just every wonderful thing you could ever imagine. And one thing that I really wasn't exposed to was the great outdoors. And so when I was about 27 years old, a neighbor came over, introduced himself, and said, are you a hunter?" And I said, "No, actually, I tried it once when I was very young, and there were some obstacles. I can't stop talking. I don't like being cold. I hate waking up early in the morning, and I can't sit still." And so that really kind of puts me to disadvantage right out of the gate. And so no, hunting really was not for me. And he said, "Well, then you're not doing it right, and I'm going to show you." So he took me under his wing and was kind enough to take me to his duck club. And he was right. We weren't doing it correctly. He had a handle on it. He really knew what he was doing, knew how to have a lot of fun, and didn't hurt that it had blinds that were heated and had stove and ovens in it. So we were cooking these phenomenal breakfasts inside the blind. So it was kind of brunch and a little bit of duck hunting. So that
Beautiful.
that put a spin on it for me, and that's how my hunting career got started. And then about 4 years into duck hunting, my hunting partner said, uh, "I think you'd be really good with big game hunting, and I'd like you to come out to out west and try your hand at shooting some mule deer and elk." And it took a little bit of coaxing, but I agreed, and thank goodness that I did. Again, you don't know what you don't know, and it really opened my eyes to a world that I never knew existed. And it was there that I discovered that hunting is really so much more than chasing game. It's kind of bigger than life. It's camaraderie and the planning and the travel and the adventure, the journey. Not just for that trip, but as you begin to enjoy success with your hunting, it really changes your perspective. And so, what spurred me on to write the book was a little bit different. Um, my hunting buddy told me, "You're a riot. You make everybody laugh. You like to make people laugh. You should write a book." And I blew him off for 15 years. And finally, I decided to sit down and give it a shot. And it took me about a month, and it was a lot easier than I thought. It was certainly a lot more fun than I thought. And so that book was the book about big game hunting. And I decided, well, you know what? I'll write a book about duck hunting next. So I did that. And by the way, that book will be coming out near waterfowl season. And that was just sent off to the editor a couple weeks ago. So I'm very excited about that. But the whole bit about writing the books was we really wanted to encourage people to get involved in the outdoors, become engaged in the environment that surrounds you rather than your cell phone and your social media accounts. Get off the couch, go for a walk in the woods, and open your eyes. Like I said, I didn't know what I was missing, and thank God I went on these adventures and had people that were they really enjoyed showing me.
Yeah, totally. And it's so interesting. My platform is mentorship is conservation. And so if it wasn't for the mentorship or somebody reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, would you like to participate in this?" Do you think you ever would have even considered it? I mean, or was it just like hunting? Ugh, no thank you, or what was your mindset?
Well, I knew that it could be fun. In order to really engage me, I need to enjoy a certain amount of success. This is why I never succeeded at golf, because I was horrible at it. And that one good swing out of 312 was not enough to keep me coming back. So once I enjoyed a little bit of success, which was entirely because of my hunting partner, who's been there and done that all over the world. Um, he really took time to teach me how to do it correctly, so that I could enjoy success, but also so that I would understand the conservation side, why the rules are important, how to do it safely, responsibly, and ethically. And so it was a real whirlwind. It was like drinking from a fire hose. But once I got past all the rough, the learning curve, which was significant, um, it just became something that I look forward to every single morning. I just couldn't wait to get up at 3:45, drive an hour, and go sit in the cold with these guys that took time to teach me how to duck hunt. So my mindset was, I'm not going to like this. And after I enjoyed a little bit of success that first day, I was hooked. And I knew I loved the outdoors. Didn't particularly like the snow and the rain, but that kind of comes with it. And then, you realize the weather plays a big part in hunting. And that all just becomes part of the game. And that's what's so exciting.
Your perspective is very fascinating and yet very common, I would say, against along with a lot of people that live in urban environments. People that don't get out as much, I would say, would resonate quite a bit with your message. What was the turning point, like a light switch, like the one moment? And obviously, you talk about a lot of things in the book, and I don't want to give away the book for all the listeners listening because I recommend reading this book. It is quite entertaining. There's a lot of cool stuff in it, and it gives you a perspective that is often forgot, especially amongst experienced hunters. And so
Yes.
I really love it. But what was like, if you were to put one thing or your thumb on one thing and be like, this is what did it for me. What was it for hunting that just lit your soul on fire and be like, okay, I'm a hunter now?
It's there's so much to that question. There really isn't an easy answer, but I will tell you that there was one day out in the mountains in Utah. I found myself alone. It was snowing. I was a half an hour car ride away from anything, um, and I really started soul searching. I mean, it was really profound moment. Everything just kind of clicked. I saw the environment before me as it was. Um, I could swear I could hear the snow falling. Um, I had seen cat tracks that day. I had seen elk tracks that day. I saw a deer. It was so peaceful and calming. Um, there was just something that came over me, and it all just clicked. And it, all those years spent in the duck blind, I sort of got it. It was really neat. I enjoyed it, but I never had that moment in the duck blind where I thought, my God, this is an edge of life that I've never seen, and I'm just open to turning myself over to it. I never
Mm,
considered myself an outdoorsman until that day. I was just kind of the guy that was along for the ride and willing to learn from the people that were taking their time to teach me.
hmm
But that day I walked out of the woods. Um, it was the most successful hunt that I've ever had. And I never had a shot at an animal. I never even picked up my gun.
mm, amazing. Do you think that waterfowl hunting has the same impact on someone becoming a hunter as big game hunting?
Impossible to say. It really depends on what you like. Waterfowling is very interesting. On a good day, there's a lot of action. Ducks make passes, you take your shots, and then you wait for the next group to come. So there's a lot going on, a lot of technical stuff with weather and calling, and how to play the birds. Um, with big game hunting, it's a lot different. You're on the move a lot. It's very demanding physically, which, given my shape, is something that I wouldn't expect me to enjoy. But oftentimes, people say you really should get in shape, and I argue with them and say pear is a shape. Look it up. I'm not just, we'll put it that way. And you're in my case, I was climbing mountains, carrying heavy gear, carrying a heavy gun, um, and it's a lot of work for one shot. Um, that is, if you do it right. And I'm all for the one shot, one kill, be ethical, so I don't take any crazy chances. But it is a ton of work, big game hunting. So if you like a ton of preparation and a lot of physical demand and that one big payoff, then big game hunting is amazing. If you're more the guy that likes to go out and shoot a box of shells and have, constant action, or at least more than one shot, then waterfowling is probably a better route for you to take. Unfortunately, I like them all. That gets expensive, but you get into it at 27 years old, and there's just so much to learn, and it's so much fun getting involved and seeing that side of nature that I could never appreciate before.
Yeah, I totally agree. How old are you in this book?
Let's see, I would have
Or
been.
how many years ago were these
I start.
experiences?
I started the duck hunting when I was 27. I went out big game hunting for the first time. I guess I would have been about 30, 31. So I have become less fit over the years, and I have done more demanding hunting. So I figure one of these years something's got to give. Hopefully, it's not my knees.
Ain't that the truth? I told my children last night, or was it? It's 2 nights ago. I sat down next to them because my oldest is getting to the age where he's like, okay, I want to go hunting with you. He's 6 years old. Next year he's gonna be
Oh,
7. It's like, hey, Dad. I took him out this year more or less for a nature hike. As we looked for grouse, we never saw any. Lots of snacks. You got to have the snacks for the kiddos. And
absolutely.
and I sat down with my children and I was like, I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that when you're my age, I'm still hunting with you and being out in the mountains and being a field with you because I know how special it is for me and my soul. And if you end up having the same type of love, I want to share that with you. And so I told him that, and so that leads me to the question in which I want to ask you, Fred, is so often in life, especially in Western hunting culture, there's this premonition of you got to get into Western hunting shape. And and it's this whole industry or community that's built around the fitness aspect, the mental game, and challenging yourself and sharpening yourself and going through this process. And yet here you are talking about your body being a pear shape and the physical fitness. You're like, was there anything that really struck a chord with you and was like, okay, I'm putting my foot down, I'm making changes in my life? Or were you like, you know what? I love living the way I live and I love doing this and I'm going to do it as long as I can. And at the end, it'll be the end, or whatever comes will be.
Well, the whole Western fitness thing is real. I mean, you're at altitude, which makes a huge difference. Um, and like I said before, it's also physically very demanding. Um, I hunt with guys that are a little older than myself. I'm 50, and they out hunt me because they are in far better shape than I think I've ever been in. But they're used to it. Most of them are from the Midwest. Then occasionally we get guys that are from the mountains. You know, they live in Wyoming or Idaho, and they do this year round. You know, to prep for hunting, they hike, and to prep for hiking, they hunt. So it's just it's a big circle for them, and they're working on their fitness all the time.
Mm.
So of course, when this last year we filmed a couple shows, and I was with a TV personality, and we were just charging up this mountain. It was effortless for the man and his cameraman. You know, I'm dying, gasping for air, 10 steps behind them, and they're just out for a casual stroll straight up the side of this mountain. Um, these guys are goats, but they work really hard at it. So you know, it ends up being where the third time I have to ask them to slow down or take a break because I need to catch my breath, I just remind them who has the gun and tell them that I'm not afraid to shoot them in the butt to slow them down, because, you know, it's really hard to keep up with those guys. Uh, but you know, they were very patient with me. But just to give you an idea, we hunted for 6 days, and I hiked 29 miles. And
Awesome.
me in the mountains at altitude with gear, that is an accomplishment all on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, the small victories, you know, like how do you run a race of 100 miles? One step at a time, right? And so this mentality, and this is what I love about hunting so much, is what it teaches you. And it teaches you about yourself. I just got my butt handed to me in the turkey woods this week, and I came home extremely frustrated because it was my first time spring turkey hunting, and I love spot and stock hunting. However, with that being said, I was also willing to venture and try new things. And what I learned is I am not a fan of sitting and waiting for hours and hours. You know, and a lot of people are like, well, take a nap. And I'm like, I don't want to take a nap. I want to be present in the moment and enjoy it. And part of being present in the moment is being at peace in nature and allowing yourself to settle in. And so I left the mountains with a lot of internal turmoil, where it's like, okay, what is the purpose? What is the goal? I want to kill a turkey, and yet a day of field is always better than none at all. So is it that I really want a turkey, or is it that when I go out into nature, I can settle my soul, find myself, be at ease, get away from this madness of society these days? And it's not an or thing, it's an and thing. It's like all the above. And I think I'm more of a run and gun turkey hunter now. I want to.
Yeah, that's a tough game to play. But sitting still is not my forte. So I have a great. I really have problems sitting still. You know, my leg will go to sleep, and I'll go to move, and then I'm uncomfortable because I shifted, and you know, so I'm constantly changing positions, and that's no good. Turkeys have amazing vision, and they have amazing hearing. And so if you're rustling around in the leaves or you're moving and they see you, and oftentimes they see you way before you'll ever see them, um, you know, the hunt's over, at least for that spot, for the next several hours. And so run and gun is a really good way to go. But you know, there's a lot of there's a lot of danger there as well. Again, usually they're going to see you before you see them, and they'll be gone. Um, but that style of hunting, I've done both, and they're both exhilarating. I was just in the woods chasing turkeys in Indiana and Kentucky last week, and I had a gobbler strutting in a field 20 paces from me and gobbling right in my face. I mean, it was incredible. He was about 10 paces off the property line, and so I just had to sit there and watch him.
Mm.
And when done squawking, he turned around and walked away. He never came through the tree line. So that sit was a fail as far as I didn't get a turkey, but I got to watch a turkey trot around the field and gobble for 10 minutes straight, and that's a win for me. I mean, it's incredible to see these things and how they act and what they do and how they, people say they're such a dumb bird. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know what that makes me, but I've been frustrated by those dumb birds more often than not. So I just I really like turkey hunting. I can't quite put my finger on exactly what it is because each and every time has been so different for me. I've had them sneak out in front of me, never saying a word. Um, I've had them where we've called them in to the point where if they approach from behind, they walk by the blind close enough for me to reach out and grab them. We've brought him in from hundreds of yards away on the run. And I don't know what I like best. There's the calling game. There's the sit and be quiet, one cluck or a couple of purrs, and you sit quiet for 45 minutes before you make any more noise. They will find you. They have an amazing way of triangulating your position, and they'll come right to you, but you've got to have a lot of experience and you got to know how to work the call. And I'm not there yet, admittedly. I often have a guide with me, somebody who knows how to call. So I'm still learning that aspect. But just to touch on something that we brought up before, that's kind of the premise of why I'm writing these books. There's going to be a series of 8 or 9 of them. And the whole point um, is not only to encourage people to experience the outdoors, but it's an adventure for everybody. It's an adventure if you're brand new, it's an adventure if you're an expert, and it's an adventure if you're anywhere in between. And I'm hoping to relate to everyone out there in the hunting community, encourage people to get more involved or to get involved, period, if they're not. um, Give the intermediate guys, some exciting points where they go, "Oh, wow, we haven't tried that. Maybe we'll do that next." And kind of encourage them to go farther. And then for the guys that spent their lives doing it, um, I hope they can kind of look back, take a walk down memory lane, and not only look back at their own journey, um, but look back at all the journeys that they helped shape by passing this amazing tradition and heritage down to their children and their grandchildren, and really anybody who asks them, "Hey, will you teach me how to hunt?" And the humor aspect comes into it when you realize that my books are all nonfiction, and new guys do dumb stuff, and it's often really funny, provided no one gets shot. And I don't mind being, the butt of anybody's joke. As long as I get the laugh in the end, I'm good. So these books are really funny, self-deprecating to a point, but I'm equal opportunity. I lampoon everybody, and at the end of the day, it's all about the kinship that you develop with people that you hunt with.
Yeah, I love that. A couple things that I want to just clarify, and then I also have a question. You talked about you wrote Big Game Hunting 101. You have waterfowl hunting coming out. You're saying this is going to be a series of like 8 or 9 books. What are those books that we can look forward to?
Turkey hunting is going to be the third one. I believe fishing is going to be the fourth. We're still planning the schedule for all the others, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to shake out, but we're hoping to do an Alaska trip, which will be hopefully a Yukon moose, and a wolf, and maybe a caribou and a few other things. There's some waterfowl up there that I'd love to go take a crack at, and of course the fishing there is amazing. So that book can touch on really everything that we've already done. And I get to use all the experience that I've learned and apply it to that hunt. That could be a book or a series of books all on its own. We're going to do a book on predator hunting, and then there are a few others that are kind of open, and we're still discussing. But these, you got to have the experiences before you can write about them. So this gives me an excuse to spend a lot more time in the outdoors because it's research, and at the end of the day, that gives me the best office in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so much fun. Experiences trump opinion every single day. One of the things I love hearing you talk about is I feel like this is your legacy that you are creating for the hunting community. There's a lot of different ways people love to give back and they love to talk about conservation and making sure that hunting, wild places, wild things are around for generations to come. And yet, not many people actually get involved. And they talk about it like, "Oh, I'm a conservationist." Well, okay, what does that actually mean to you? And I think one of the greatest gifts is the spoken word and to be able to articulate it and then to transfer that into the written word so that it lasts for generations to come. I'm a huge believer in the concept of the third deaths, the three deaths of the Mayan culture. The first time you die is the moment you realize that you're mortal. The second time you die is when you physically die, but the third time you die is when your name is spoken no more. And I love this concept of you writing a book. You talk about, the notion of exploring, experience, and evolving. I use the word transformation. And this
Yes.
this is this is the legacy that you are creating to give back to something that has given to you. I find that so beautiful and also impressive because writing is a lost art. I run a website. I have people that submit articles to be published on my site, and more often than not, I feel like a teacher. Like marking notes on a paper and be like, okay, I'm gonna need you to go back and rewrite this. Have you read this out loud? And no offense to all you listeners out there who have submitted an article, but the point is like writing and the skill set of it is more than just putting words on paper. It I was taught very quickly when because I actually have written a book, Fred. I don't know if you know this or not.
Ah,
I
congratulations.
Well, thank you. I have not published it, and I specifically have not published it because my story is not done. And my story is also being currently written in multiple different forms. And so I've written it, I've held on to it, I put it aside, and what I've had as far as feedback is like, love your topics, love your concept, love your perspective. You write like you speak. And there is overcoming that is huge. Your book is an easy read. It is something in which I enjoyed turning the page and hearing what the next story was, or the next blooper, or the next blunder, or when the pot of chili, what night is that going to happen on, and how many rolls of toilet paper are you guys going to be going through, and all these different things that you write about in your book. And I'm like, that's beautiful. The idea to allow somebody to paint a picture in their mind is a skill set that is quite often lost. And so when you do that and you use it as a tool to give back to hunting, and whether or not, I don't know if you even consider this as like your gift to the hunting community and your legacy of conservation, I consider it that. So is that something that's crossed your mind?
Yeah, it has. What I'm trying to do is really motivate people to become involved in the outdoors and go experience it. But we're losing this amazing tradition of hunting at a rate of like 7% a year. Um, we've got a lot going against us. Family uh, aren't camping in the woods anymore. Both parents are working because everything's getting so expensive, and so um, oftentimes people aren't exposed to the outdoors. because there just isn't time, or their father didn't teach them. So, they're kind of lost. They don't know how to put up a tent, which, full disclosure, I couldn't put up a tent if somebody paid me. So, it's just one of those things where if you're not shown this amazing uh, gift that we've got, this resource, then you're really missing out. And so we want people to become interested in hunting. We want people to understand that there's a really uh, there's a real point behind hunting. It's a necessity. You call the herds. People don't see the connection with hunting and conservation because it's counterintuitive. You're killing an animal. How is that helping? The herd.
It's
Uh,
pruning a tree. How is pruning
it
a tree helping it to grow better and produce more fruit? What a
abs-
crazy concept.
we I actually had, when my manuscript was first finished, I asked a number of people to do a test read, and we took a sample of those people, and one of the groups that I went after specifically were people that were 100% against hunting. They don't like guns, and I was really interested to see what they had to say. And it was a group of 10 people that really just could not tolerate hunting, a discussion about hunting, anything about hunting. And what they said after they read my book really inspired me. They said that while they still don't love the idea, because you're killing an animal, they would never judge a hunter again, because now at least they understand that there's a method to the madness. If you don't call the herds, then there's too much competition for food and habitat. They end up starving to death, or getting overpopulated, and they end up with disease. And these deaths are horrible. They're really really grisly deaths, and even worse, the animal as a resource is wasted. So if you harvest the animals, then the herd is actually healthier. There isn't that competition for the food and the habitat. And when you harvest the animal, you're eating it, or you're donating it to a food pantry, which is one of the things that we really take a lot of pride in when we're out west. So we take a lot of our harvest and we donate it to the food pantries in Salt Lake City. And that to me is conservation. I've never been a fan of the hunters that see it just as a sport. We want to go out and kill stuff, and that's the big adventure. That's the big adrenaline rush. Is just killing things. I definitely.
Can I jump in there right real quick? I have to address this because I was just having this conversation this weekend with the vice president of Sportsman's Alliance, or vice president of marketing and communications of Sportsman's Alliance. And one of the things that drives me nuts is when people are like, I don't like this concept of sport hunting. And I'm like, well, what is a sport? Because at the end of the sport, you get a trophy, right? And the trophy is your harvest or your kill, because a harvest determines that you put in energy into nurturing that animal to then take its life, just like you harvest a garden and you put in energy to that. And so they're like, well, yeah, everything's a trophy. I was like, okay, so then what really makes it sport hunting? And then they're like, well, I'm not saying the guy from Sportsman's Alliance didn't have an answer, but we were having this discussion. And I was like, well, you have departments of fish and wildlife, and then you have departments of fish and game. And within a game, you have rules, and within rules, you have expectations. And then if you play within the rules, you can end up at a certain end destination, such as harvesting or killing an animal. So I just want to say this, and it's not even to say it to you, but to the listeners, to actually be very careful about the words in which you choose and how you define things, because our words, as you know, Fred, being an author, are extremely powerful and hold a lot of merit into what we do for shaping the view of hunting and what it is. And so when we're talking about this sport hunting, you know, there is we have to follow certain ethics, and ethics
Absolutely.
are the rules, therefore rules make a game, and at a game there's an ending, and that ending is eventually you kill an animal. So it's so interesting that like people are so quick, like, oh, you go to Africa and you shoot an animal and you're a trophy hunter. Well, listen, everybody, you need to understand how to be an advocate for hunting and an ambassador for hunting, because if you want it to last for generations to come and you want people to vote for legislation, you have to know how to speak for it. And speaking for it is going to make one of the biggest impacts in this world. So I just wanted to say that because it's been a hot topic uh, just within the last couple days that I've really been chewing on. So it's really interesting how you're talking about that. And I sorry for interjecting, but I totally
No,
love
not a,
I love hearing where you're going with this. But continue on, please.
where were we?
Yeah, where you're talking about this idea of where the legacy and leaving it and the conservation and like what you consider to be conservation and how you view um, culling the herds, and whether it's you taking the meat or leaving the meat and making it pruning the trees so that everything is healthier and more fulfilling, and that is how you view hunting and how you want to make sure you leave it for other generations.
Well, absolutely. It's a responsibility. Every hunter takes this on. I at least hope that every real hunter would take this on. Um, you've got to be responsible. You have to be ethical. You certainly have to be safe about it. And at the end of the day, you're making these decisions out in the field to take something's life. I don't take it lightly. I had a very long conversation with my hunting partner John, and like I said, he's been all over the world hunting with every weapon imaginable. And I asked him. I said, it was after I killed my first big game animal, which was a mule deer, and I said, the culmination of a hard hunt, and I got I accomplished what I set out to do. I harvested a mule deer. Why do I feel bad? And he said, well, you made a decision and you killed an animal. And I said, yeah, I guess you're right. You've been doing this for a really long time. When does that feeling go away? And he looked at me and he said, you know what? If you ever get to a point where you make a decision to pull the trigger and harvest an animal and you don't feel anything, that's when you need a new hobby. And he said, it's fun, it's exciting, but you have to appreciate what it is you're doing. You're putting food on your table, you're putting food on someone else's table. Yes, there's a trophy involved sometimes. You want to take it home and mount it, but you're still donating the meat. You still harvest that animal, and you still use everything that you possibly can so that that animal's life actually meant something. It served a purpose. And so I guess when it gets down to the conservation side, and what I feel I'm leaving is these books will hopefully raise awareness about ethical hunting. I hope they motivate people to get out in the woods and experience this incredible resource that we've got. And I hope people see that there is value in doing it the correct way. Um, I think it's an important thing. It's something that I can do um, to better this this heritage, and it's it was kind of like a calling to do it. So I pray that I'm doing it right, and that it makes a difference and influences people in a positive way. But obviously, I hope it makes them laugh the whole way through, because at the end of the day, that's my favorite thing in the world, is to make people laugh. So
I
that
love.
that was a big goal. I hope that showed through when you read the book.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful story. I was very uh, reflective through it all. One of the things, honestly, Fred, I was what struck me, and at least you're talking about it here for me, because I was wondering, is like, well, here you are, you just shot your very first big game animal, and you're not even taking the meat. For me, that was very shocking, and I got to know, as a reader of the story, did you even eat any of it? Was it something that you still like partook of part of that meat in a meal, or because I'm a newer hunter. I've only been doing this will be my 7th year. I've only been at this game for a very short amount of time, and so getting into it and hearing about people putting food on the table and doing that, it's a very interesting perspective. So can you share a little bit about that for the people who do pick up your book and read that and maybe have the same reaction?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan, believe it or not, of game. It just doesn't taste good to me, and it's probably because I'm used to all the refined meals and traditional meals like steak. You know, I uh, steak is a staple for me. Um, and I'm really not a huge fan of game meat. That has put me in a position to make sure that any hunt that I ever go on, I've got someone lined up. If I'm successful in harvesting anything, I've got someone lined up that is going to want the meat and utilize it. If I don't find an individual, then it's a food pantry. But if I don't have somebody lined up to receive what I shoot, I don't go.
Mm.
So that's part of the ethical side of it for me. I don't believe in going out and killing to kill. Um, I value the animals far too much, and I don't want them to go to waste. So I have at least tried everything that I've taken. Of the things that I have harvested, elk is by far the best. I would actually go out of my way to have elk, but the other thing's not so much. A little too gamey for me, and it's not my thing.
I love it. That's an interesting perspective, and thank you for answering that. And I hate to if that was something that put you on the spot, but I'm sure as this book is read by more and more people, that might be a question that they wonder, and especially when you're talking about recruiting new hunters and having
Hmm.
that be something is like, I went into hunting. I tried deer a couple times, but I went into hunting, and my first big game animal I shot was a black bear,
Oh wow,
and you don't typically come across being able to eat bear.
true.
And so for me, it's this concept of like, okay, well, here's this animal. I hope it tastes good. I'm going to eat it regardless because I took its life. And yet, what if I don't like it? Then what? And I think that's a bridge that is uncrossed by a lot of people because they don't know. So here is a question for you: is like, you're talking about lining people up with food or food pantries or all this type of stuff. How do you go about that process?
Well, it's for me, it's very easy. I have a lot of friends that really like the waterfowl that I harvest, and they're happy to take any ducks or geese that I harvest. As far as the big game goes, there are a number of food pantries out in Salt Lake City that are very eager to receive any sort of meat, particularly going into the colder seasons. And so it's very easy to just ask around your circle of friends and say, "Hey, I'm going bear hunting next week. Anybody interested in bear meat?" And if somebody says yes, then that's great. You make sure that you at least furnish them with a good processor, or you do it for them. Um, just as long as the animal doesn't go to waste, and if your friends aren't happy to receive bear meat or whatever it is, then just call the local food pantries and shelters in your area, and I'm sure you'll find a home for it there. Um, if that doesn't work out for you, call the Department of Fish and Game. Call the DNR in your state. Tell them what you're planning on doing, and they often have people on lists. Because what happens is if any of these gaming officers catch hunters that are doing things illegally, they seize their harvest. Well, they don't want the harvest to go to waste. They don't just drag it to a dumpster and get rid of it. Um, they typically have the hunter as part of the punishment. You know, you get fined and you get suspended. Your license gets suspended oftentimes. But as part of the punishment, they actually ask you to pay for the processing, and then that meat gets donated to a family in need. So there are all sorts of ways to find a good place for the meat that you harvest. You just have to maybe pick up the phone a couple of times, and do your part to make sure it doesn't go to waste.
Yeah. Have you ever had a mountain black bear that's been eating nothing but huckleberries?
No, I never have. I have heard bear meat is one of the greatest things on the planet. I would not hesitate to try it. I definitely think it's important to try it. Um, where it goes from there, I don't know.
So I had some brand new neighbors move in last week. The day I left to go turkey hunting is the day that they moved in. And so I'm just starting to get to know them. Well, last night, my most favorite wild game meal is berryaki. You take bear meat, and a lot of times people are so concerned about the whole concept of trichinosis, and they're like, "Well, I don't know if I how do we cook this? I want to make sure it's cooked well enough." And so I marinated some bear backstrap last week and then forgot to cook it before my hunt. And so I've been marinating all week, and
Wow.
I put it on the Traeger, and I cooked it at 350 until it reached internal temperature of what 160 or 170, whatever it is, and I pulled it off, and I got to share that with my neighbor tonight. And my neighbor was like, "Holy smokes, I've never had bear." They didn't hesitate to reach out to it, and they were like, "Wow, this is really good. Feel free to make this more often." So, Fred, if you ever come up to the Northwest, I got some berryaki waiting for you.
Buddy, I would jump on a plane. That sounds awesome. Of course, we're gonna have to go bear hunting. That's something that I've never done.
I'll tell you
That
what, getting up into the mountains in the month of August where the days are so long and the sun is beating down on you and you got nothing but mosquitoes biting you the entire time. it's
sounds
just
like
it's just
a
heaven. No, but I really I find that to be like the one of the pinnacles of hunting is to be able to get up into the mountains and see a mountain sunrise and a mountain sunset and to just be there in the wilderness far away from roads. And that is where I got to find my soul. And that's how the Soulful Hunter was developed and found was because of a journey like that. So I love it, Fred. Fred, what's on the horizon for you? What's next? Not you talked about Alaska, you talked about the books, but like this fall, what do you got going on? What are you looking forward to?
a lot of writing. The last spring, my hunting buddy and I went on an incredible adventure for the turkey book. We attempted a world slam in a single season, which is all 6 subspecies of turkey. 2 you find in Mexico, one in the Yucatan Peninsula and further south, and then the Sonoran Desert is the other. And then you've got the 4 that you find here domestically. And so we did that, like I said, for the book. And so this fall, I'm going to be writing the turkey book all about our attempt at the single season World Slam. I think that there will also be a couple of outings. I'll be filming a couple of shows with Jana Waller, which I'm really looking forward to. And we're going to be doing mitigation hunts for elk in Utah. And I believe there's going to be a fishing component to that as well. So it's mostly going to be writing, which I actually look forward to. It's fun putting that puzzle together and trying to tell a compelling story. And of course, trying to crack jokes all the way through it, of course. But really, the adventure these days lies in just how my life has changed so much because of hunting and because of the outdoors and my newfound appreciation for being out in the wilderness and seeing things that most people never get to see. You have no idea what it's like to hunt in the clouds. You have no idea what it's like to watch a storm unfold below you. Crazy things like that. Interesting to get 8 feet of snow dumped on you and then figure out how you're getting off the mountain. All those things. So I really don't know how to answer what one thing I'm looking forward to this coming fall. There's a lot going on, and I'm actually excited for all of it.
I love it. Life is good, man. It's really exciting. I'm a huge fan of Jana Waller. Obviously, she is a staple and a hallmark within the hunting community and everything that she does and stands for. She is someone who she introduced us, and I have her on the podcast as much as she has an open door policy with me. If she wants to talk about something or whatever, it's like, all right, Jana, let's. I actually just reached out to her today because I was like, shoot, man, I'm getting fed up with some things. What is life in Montana like? I'm reaching out to her and talking to her about that. But I really look forward to watching some of the shows that you're going to be on with her and Skullbound. And Fred, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of The Soulful Hunter. Where can people purchase your book? How can they find you? How can they get a hold of you? All that good stuff.
Very easy. E3outdoors.com. You can find the book there. You can also go on Amazon and find it under Big Game Hunting 101. You probably find it if you look up Frederick Kloecker. It should take you to the page. It is available in soft cover and in Kindle formats. And I hope people are interested enough to give it a read. And I hope they laugh themselves right out of their chair.
Oh, beautiful. I love it. Fred, thank you so much for recording an episode with us. Everyone, if you are a reader, I highly recommend this book. And if you're not a reader, it's time to start because knowledge is power. And we can't rely upon Siri and Alexa to always provide us with the information and knowledge to help us get through our day. It's time for you to take the power back and for you to be the holder of your own knowledge and your own information. And a part of that is reading, and that is why book burning has been such a hallmark classic for tyranny and oppression in the history of humanity. So anyone who writes a book is in an echelon all to themselves, but not only that, a good book such as Big Game Hunting 101, No Room Service, and Other Terrifying Realities. I'm your host, Johnny Mack. Thank you so much for tuning in. Freedom on, and as always, stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love it if you could go ahead and give this a rating as well as subscribe. Also, you can check us out on Instagram under the Soulful Hunter Podcast. Make sure to tag us in pictures and posts and use the hashtag Soulful Hunter. To find out more about the Soulful Hunter Podcast, go to soulfulhunter.com and be sure to follow the podcast as we are going to be bringing you a lot of great information, insight, and changing lives through primal adventure. I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Stay tuned and stay soulful.